The clinking of cutlery, the low hum of conversations, and the faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the small family diner on the corner of the busy street. It was a place where people came not just to eat, but to breathe for a while. For some, it was a break from their hectic jobs, for others, a retreat from loneliness. And on that cold evening, it was a place where fate quietly set the stage for a story that would change 3 lives forever. A young girl with curly brown hair and wide, searching eyes sat at the edge of a booth, her tiny hands wrapped around a glass of warm milk. Across from her sat a man in a perfectly pressed suit, his face sharp, his posture commanding. To anyone watching, he looked like the kind of man who had it all: success, money, power. But if they looked closer, they would see the cracks, the dark circles under his eyes, the silence that stretched too long between him and his daughter, and the way his phone seemed to own more of his attention than the child in front of him. Her name was Lily. His name was Daniel Hayes, one of the youngest and most powerful CEOs in the city. On paper, he was untouchable, respected, and admired. But in reality, he was broken in ways no spreadsheet or annual report could reveal. He was a single father, raising Lily on his own after tragedy had ripped his wife away in an accident 3 years ago. Since then, he had buried himself in work, thinking that providing for her financially was enough. Yet, as Lily sat across from him, fiddling with her straw, the loneliness in her eyes betrayed what no empire of wealth could buy: a mother's love. It was in that fragile silence that the waitress approached. She had soft features, tired yet warm eyes, and a smile that carried both kindness and a quiet history of her own struggles. Her name tag read Emily. She leaned down gently to take their order, but before Daniel could speak, Lily's small voice broke through the air, trembling but determined. Can you be my mommy?" The diner seemed to freeze. Forks paused midair. Conversations died down for a heartbeat. And Daniel Hayes, the man who could negotiate multi-million-dollar deals without flinching, sat frozen, his throat tight, his heart pounding so loudly he swore the entire diner could hear it. He looked at his daughter, then at the stunned waitress, and back again. For the first time in years, Daniel had no words. Blue Heart, if you believe in kindness, love, and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to MJ Kindness Moments. Stories like this remind us of the fragile beauty of human connections. Your support helps spread more heart-touching stories around the world. Blue Heart. Emily blinked, stunned by the child's innocent request. She let out a soft laugh, not mocking but tender, as if trying to ease the weight of the moment. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "I'm just your waitress tonight." But Lily's little hands gripped hers tightly, her eyes glistening with a plea too raw for her age. "But I don't have a mommy," Lily whispered. Daniel's chest constricted. He had heard those words before, in the quiet of their home, when Lily clutched a photo of her late mother. But hearing them now, spoken aloud to a stranger, hit him with the force of 1,000 bricks. He wanted to scoop her up, to say something that would heal the wound he had allowed to grow, but his voice caught in his throat. For all his wealth and power, he was powerless in that moment. Emily crouched down, her smile faltering into something deeper: compassion, pain, recognition. She had once been a little girl like Lily, growing up without a mother after illness stole hers away. She knew the hunger in Lily's voice, the ache that no one else seemed to notice. And though she was just a waitress struggling to pay rent and care for her younger brother, she felt something stir in her heart that she hadn't felt in years: a call to care. The rest of the evening passed in an unusual quiet. Daniel tried to shift the conversation, but Lily's eyes followed Emily wherever she went, lighting up only when the waitress returned with their food. When Emily brought over a small piece of pie, on the house, for Lily, Daniel felt an ache inside, an ache of guilt, of gratitude, and of something else he couldn't yet name. Driving home that night, Lily held onto her pie box as if it were treasure. "Daddy," she said softly, she was nice. She felt like mommy. Daniel's grip tightened on the steering wheel. For years, he had told himself he was doing enough. But tonight, the truth had clawed its way into his heart. His daughter needed more than money, more than toys, more than fancy schools. She needed love, presence, warmth. She needed a family. In the days that followed, Daniel found himself returning to the diner. At first, he told himself it was coincidence. A quick coffee before work. A convenient lunch spot near the office. But deep down, he knew why he kept coming back. And every time he did, Lily's smile grew brighter. Emily always welcomed them with kindness, sometimes with a playful wink for Lily, sometimes with a quiet nod for Daniel. It was simple, ordinary, yet extraordinary in the way it made their hearts feel less heavy. Emily, too, began to notice things. Daniel wasn't just a wealthy man, he was a man trying desperately not to drown under the weight of his responsibilities. He worked long hours, but when he looked at Lily, there was love in his eyes, buried under exhaustion, yes, but real. And Lily. Lily reminded Emily of her younger brother, the one she had practically raised when their father abandoned them. She understood what it meant to grow up missing something so vital. Weeks turned into months. The three of them began to share unspoken rituals. Lily would wave wildly the moment they walked into the diner. Emily would bring her favorite strawberry milkshake without even asking. And Daniel, though still reserved, began to soften in ways he never thought possible. He caught himself laughing more, listening more, even putting his phone away just to watch Lily and Emily chat. One snowy evening, as Lily carefully drew pictures on her napkin, Daniel finally found the courage to speak. He waited until Emily set down their food, then cleared his throat. His voice was low, uncertain, so unlike the confident CEO the world knew. "I don't know what you've done," he said quietly, glancing at Lily who giggled over her doodles, "but my daughter hasn't smiled like this in years." "Thank you." Emily looked at him, really looked, and saw not a powerful man but a weary father, desperate to do right by his little girl. She smiled softly. "Maybe all she needed was someone to listen," she replied. That night, Daniel lay awake, haunted by Lily's first words to Emily, "Can you be my mommy?" He had dismissed them as childish longing, but now he saw them differently. They were a plea, yes, but also a prophecy. And for the first time since his wife's death, he wondered if love could find its way back into his life. The turning point came unexpectedly. Lily's school was hosting a family day, where children were asked to bring both parents. Lily came home with the flyer, her eyes brimming with tears. "Daddy," she whispered, "can Emily come with us? Just this once. So I'm not the only one without a mommy." Daniel's heart nearly broke. He wanted to say no, to explain that it wasn't that simple. But when he looked into Lily's hopeful eyes, he couldn't bring himself to shatter her fragile world. The next morning, he found himself standing at Emily's doorstep, nervously asking for a favor he never thought he'd ask. Emily hesitated, torn between fear of overstepping and the undeniable bond she felt with Lily. But the way the little girl clung to her leg, the way her eyes pleaded without words, it melted every wall she had built. "All right," she whispered, "just this once." Family day came, and for the first time, Lily walked into school with her head held high. She introduced Emily proudly as her mommy, her little hand gripping both Daniel's and Emily's. Teachers smiled knowingly, classmates whispered, but all Lily cared about was that, for one beautiful afternoon, she felt whole. And Daniel, he watched with tears in his eyes as his daughter beamed. For years, he had believed he was enough. But now he realized, being enough didn't mean doing it alone. Sometimes, it meant allowing others in. Red Heart, if this story touched your heart, please show your love by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to MJ Kindness Moments. These true-to-life stories remind us of the power of compassion and second chances. Your engagement helps keep such inspiring content alive. Red Heart. From that day on, things began to change. Daniel and Emily's bond deepened, not through grand gestures but through small, steady moments, cooking dinner together, helping Lily with homework, sharing quiet conversations long after the diner had closed. For Emily, who had known loss and struggle, it was like finding a piece of herself she thought she had lost forever. For Daniel, it was rediscovering love after years of silence. And for Lily, it was everything she had ever wanted, the warmth of a family, the comfort of knowing she was no longer missing a piece of her heart. Months later, on a warm spring evening, Daniel took Lily and Emily back to the diner, the place where it all began. He asked Emily to sit with them in the booth instead of serving them. Nervously, he reached for her hand. His voice trembled as he spoke words that carried the weight of years of grief, fear, and hope. "Emily, I can't promise I won't make mistakes. But I can promise that I don't want to face this life without you. Will you be the mother Lily has prayed for, and the woman I've been too afraid to love again?" Tears filled Emily's eyes as she looked at the man and child before her. She thought of her past, her struggles, her doubts. And then she thought of the little girl who had once asked a stranger in a diner the most heartbreaking, honest question of all. Emily nodded, unable to speak, but her smile said everything. Lily squealed, clapping her hands, and hugged them both tightly. In that embrace, the pieces of 3 broken lives finally fit together. The diner, once just a place of routine, had become the birthplace of a family.